So this is a follow-up video to this power steering box, Adwest. I painted it last night and it is dry as a bone. And again, just to prove, there's oil in there. I have no worries about that at all, apart from finding some paper towel to wipe my fingers off. If I can get 5 minutes to myself this year, I think I might just set up the old sewing machine table and modernise this idea, because I've got it all backwards, if you see what I mean. The steering box, the drag arm, I have to put on backwards to set the backlash, which is a bit of a pain. So I'm going to do that as a separate item. Because I'm on hoses, I can move everything around. I'll keep the power steering pump, but down here, this pathetic motor is useless. So I think I might just play around with that this year and give me some, well, not something to do, I've got plenty of things to do. But there's an awful lot of people with their steering boxes are quite easy to fix, but difficult to set up. And of course, they all leak. Well, like I say, I was quite surprised that this one here was like a reconditioned one, but it leaked. Mind you, I did buy it about 4 years ago, so I think the warranty's up on it now. Anyway, less of this rambling. I'm going to get this stripped off, and then we'll get it fitted to the car and see if I can show you any tips. I thought I'll put some top tips for this box before I fitted it on. The box is full of oil, so what I've done is I've got some plastic caps, pushed it in there so I don't have to drain it and refill it again. That's good. Second thing, if you'd noticed, I took the dust cover off here because I wanted to see if the seal was leaking, so I've just fitted a new one. Second, third, I don't know where it is. On here, this particular shaft is the older type of shaft. Now notice it's got only one place for the bolt to go through. On the later ones, it's got a groove round here. I think I've got one in the box. So here's what I was talking about. This is the shaft off the later ones, and that allows you to put a bolt through any position of the spline, whereas this one only allows you to put the bolt in one position. So you've got to line up that spline and tap that on, and take that off, and then pull that back a little bit, and the bolt should go through. Like, look at that, didn't even practice that. Tap it all the way forward, and then we're going to put the joints together. It should work. Unfortunately, talking about this here, I'm going to give a bit of a shout to Andy, who had a left-hand drive steering box up in Bonnie, Scotland there, and he was going to send it to me, but the cost of sending the box was absolutely outrageous. So I suggested take the shaft out and the main selector shaft, we'll put them in a box and send them here. So that's going to be a lot cheaper for shipping, and then we don't have to mess about with the repair in this. So this is toast. Alright, so that's good. So let's get on with fitting this steering box. So there's the box ready to go on. Top tip, put the nut on the thread to protect it, because these are heavy and they're awkward. If it drops on the floor, you could actually damage the thread quite easily. If you do damage the thread, I bought a die nut here off Amazon, which is 7/8 14, so that's 7/8 UNF thread. Now there is a different thread on the earlier ones because it was a bit smaller, but they're really hard to find. The other thing I've got to say, well, I can get plenty of sawdust down because it will drip oil all day long. When I'm lifting up the box, I get a parallel bar smaller than the hole, so it can locate on a thread, you know, inside the steering box, and hold it in place while you put the other bolts in. Talking about the other bolts, I try to get in the habit of putting new tab washers on all the time. It doesn't really matter too much, but we're going to put those into here, ready to screw. And now you can see why I cut those corners off now, because you can get in there with a socket. Isn't that easy? Oof, we like that, don't we? We like an easy life. So now I'm going to clean off the sawdust and get under the car and lift the box in. So as you can see now, I've got the box in. Only took a minute. And you can see how I can wiggle it around. Now I should be able to put the bolts in really easy. Right, that was easy, wasn't it? Just put them in finger tight. That was easy. wiggle it around a little bit. This is the correct position to put the washers. You would have thought that the washers would have gone behind the bolt heads, but they don't. The reason for that is that you've got a bit of leverage space to bend over those pathetic lugs at the top. So they can now, oops, you can't see, can you? By wiggling the box around a bit more, which I can't do with one hand, put those in and then we'll torque those down. Another top tip. I'm now fitting this support bar here. Now the idea is don't tighten up all the bolts until they're all snugged up, because in here, I just left this one off loose to show you, you probably found out, to allow for manufacturing discrepancies. You see the hole doesn't always line up with this arm. So, and also there's a shoulder on the back. So you've got to sort of progressively tighten this, tighten that, until it's all nice and even. Because if not, if you tighten this up too tight, and then tighten this up, it's going to sort of tip a little bit. So just do it progressively, and you'll find it'll be okay. So that's that done. I'll finish off doing, this is actually a 3/4, like a UNF thread, 7/16 UNF thread, but 19mm fits anyway, it doesn't really matter, does it? Right, let's get a torque wrench out. So I've just torqued them down. I've got 81 Newton meters as in the book on all the bolts. These, and this 81 Newton meters. Now we're going to fit the drop arm. Next, we're fitting the drop arm and the drop arm nut. I'm putting in new washers on everything. Get into the habit of putting new lock washers in, because it's a waste of time using old ones. The drop arms, just be careful. There's two different types. There's a left and a right one. You'll soon see, because if you put the wrong one on, these steering boxes are about, what is it, about 3.5 turns lock to lock. But if you put the wrong one on, you'll get it like 2 turns one way and 1 turn the other, or in that area it'll go more than the other. So this one's the right one. If you notice there, it's a little bit shiny around here. That's because I had to buff a little bit off the casting to get the puller tool off, to get it so I could get it on my test bench. The socket you need is an 1 5/16". Can you see that? 1 5/16". And then we're going to tighten that down to its specified torque. With the nut correctly torqued up, tap over the tab washer. There's a flat on the back. Knock it up towards that side and knock one down at this side. It's really important to get that tightened up properly. Next thing, drag link on, and that's it. Now we can see a few drops on there because I've been pushing the steering backwards and forwards to turn it. It's not just because it's leaking, it's coming out the plastic caps. Next thing, we're going to put the fold over these tab washers here and here, and then we're sort of finished in this corner. So there we are, it's all on. I put new locking nuts on the steering shaft. I've just washed it off with some brake cleaner, because you've got to bleed out the top of the housing. There's an air trap at the top. That's why it's got a bleed screw in, otherwise the steering pump is very noisy because it traps air. So I've done that, that's it. So all we've got to do now is probably take off the steering wheel and get the wheels set straight, and then that job is done. So I hope you like that. That was just sort of messing about putting a steering box on. It's not too bad to do. It's a bit tight in this car, but it'll do the job. That little shield really helps around the steering shaft and what have you. Keeps the heat off the knuckle and front joint. Alright, see you later. Bye.